30, 40 minutes, really brief. And I'll just share a little bit about what I'm doing right now, and then just a little bit about how adversity, trauma, anxiety, depression, how we are all intimately affected in our work and in our personal lives. Now, you can't separate what you're doing professionally and personally. So I'm going to talk to you today not only from my professional role, but also as a mom, as a sister, as, a partner in a relationship and as a friend. So for the past probably 10 years, I've been doing a lot of the application of the newest social and emotional neuroscience, cognitive neuroscience research, and applying it in classrooms, pre-K through higher ed, and learning how brain development is affected by adversity and trauma. And so we've developed a framework that's for businesses, it's for families, it's for schools. It's called Applied Educational Neuroscience, and it's built on 4 pillars. So I want you to really, as you enjoy your lunch this afternoon, think about these personally in your life, and then think about these professionally. I know that my husband and I would have been different parents to Andrew and Sarah and Reagan had I known this when they were little. We do the best we can, but, looking at my prior experiences and not knowing this, you'll never not think about the brain and body again. So this framework, first of all, is addressing adult brain and body state. And that sounds pretty simple, but what we know is that when you're dysregulated, professionally or personally, it has emotional contagion to your clients, to your own children. Emotions are as contagious as this virus. And so we know when an adult is dysregulated, you can't discipline well, you can't parent well, I can't teach well, and I can't learn well and live well. So we are really paying attention to the brain and body state, which are intimately connected. We talk about the brain, but it's as much about our bellies. Our bellies have a brain, our hearts have a brain. Your digestive system is intimately connected to the limbic structures in the brain. Your emotional center, your vigilant center. So the second pillar of this work is connection. And that sounds really simple too, but what we know is that even as 30 or 40 or 50 or 60-year-olds or 70-year-olds, your experiences early in life, in those first couple of years, impact how you work today, they impact how you relate to people, they impact how you think, how you feel, how you behave. And attachment, secure attachment to another, it literally builds the nervous system. It literally creates healthy brain integration and development through those first 1,000 days of life. It's really fascinating to think that between birth and age 2 is the greatest time of brain development. That brain is wiring up at about 1 million synapses a second. I can't get my head around that. So those connections, whether they are supportive and nurturing in those first 1,000 days, or if they've been, sometimes really toxic, still wire up the brain. So when I love bringing this to the business community, because when you think about connection, we're all selling and we're all buying. As teachers, we do the same thing. As counselors, social workers, parents, we are always in this, what we call a serve and return with your clients. And that requires authenticity. And it requires connection, but here's something really fascinating. 93% of your communication is nonverbal. 93%. 7% is words. 38% is your tone of voice. And the rest is your posturing, how you gesture. And kids and adults who are in a hyper, dogs especially, and I'm not being funny, they read emotions perfectly. The limbic structures in a dog resemble ours. If anyone's ever had a rescue dog, you know, they can become very hypervigilant, hyper-aroused, you know, into anything that feels unsafe, threatening, or unfamiliar. It could be the doorbell, it could be the way someone's posture is, and we're the same way. So when you think about the importance of nonverbal communication, I think we know that intuitively, but it really matters how you present a safe, emotionally available space for clients. And I think one of the things that, you know, we're learning is that connection produces, right? I mean, if you don't have connection with kids or with your clients, it really doesn't matter. The third pillar is co-regulation. And it's really fascinating because I've just written a new book, and it's called Rewiring Our Perceptions of Discipline, Connections over Compliance. And what we're learning today in our schools is that traditional discipline works the best with the kids who need it the least. And it works the least with the kids who need it the most. And we are seeing after COVID, right now I'm back in the classroom in Lawrence Township. So the university, I have course release hours with the university, so I'm in Lawrence Township. And actually, when you were trying to get a hold of me this morning, I was with 3rd and 4th grade at Harrison Hill. But I'm co-teaching 2 mornings a week and taking this work into the classroom so I can see what's working well and what's not. But in these past 6 months, our kids have been home, and we were all thrown into a time with chronic unpredictability. In mid-March, none of us knew what tomorrow was going to bring or what next week was going to bring, and we still don't. And then on top of that, we had George Floyd's death, the murder of George Floyd in the end of May, and which highlighted racism in our country. And the pain of the ongoing racism and COVID has accumulated. It's layered stress upon stress. So these kids are carrying in that suffering. And oftentimes we don't have the words for that. The brain, when you think about these pillars and co-regulation means you share your calm. And the only way you can ever share calm is when you're calm. You can't do it. You can't fake it either. Because we all know when you are smiling and you don't feel it in your body. Because trauma and adversity hit the body. It's not just psychological, it's physiological. When we think about traumas and adversities, it's a nervous system challenge. It hits our kids in their bodies. You know that. Your heart starts to beat fast. How many of you have had a rapid heartbeat over the last 6 months? You can't get a deep breath? You know, you're feeling just kind of numb. When you think about how you experience this time, it would be more accurate to think about sensations rather than feelings. And that's what we're helping kids to really identify. What are you sensing in your body? What are you sensing in your brain? The 4th pillar of this is teaching our kids the science. And I always smile when I tell this because so many of our kids come to school and they know that they're academically behind. They know that they've been given a label of attention deficit disorder. They know that they've been labeled behavior disorder or emotionally disturbed. They know this, and they've already started self-identifying with these labels. So the coolest thing, and this is what I did all morning, it's what I've been doing for the last 7 years in the schools, is we're teaching the kids the science. What's happening in your brain when you're feeling angry and anxious is that your amygdala is firing. And your prefrontal cortex has flipped. And they know this. So we're not talking about behaviors. We're talking about brain and body states. And I think it's really healthy for all of us. You know, when we think about how contagious emotions are, and what we know today is what you can name, you contain. And I want to share that with you today. What you can share, you can bear. It's so important in our lives. I don't care if you're 80, 50, 20, when you can take a couple of minutes and take some deep breaths every day, you're actually activating your parasympathetic nervous system. You're lowering your blood blood pressure, lowering your respiration, lowering that heart rate. When you move, when you do anything rhythmically, you are literally returning your brain and body to homeostasis. So what's rhythmic? I don't know if anyone plays a musical instrument. I don't know if anyone likes to take a walk. Does anyone bike ride? Does anyone pace when you're upset? Pacing, chewing gum is rhythmic. So there are things, knitting, crocheting, having a project that you're working on at home, building, constructing. It is so good for you. So I want you to think today and share with your families that for us to feel that sense of calm and openness and to work from the prefrontal cortex instead of the amygdala, we've got to use rhythm. You know, you got to be moving. You got to be taking deep breaths. Our grandparents said that, and I remember my grandmother saying that, and there's nothing more powerful in regulating brain and body state than deep breathing. And we are teaching this to 5 and 4-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and you know, in Indiana, if you say meditation in the classroom, people still look at you, you know, like it's a little woo-woo. But what we're using, what we say, we started saying this in Washington Township, we call these focused attention practices. And focused attention practices, that's exactly what meditation is. You're focusing on a stimulus and giving exercise and repetitive patterned experiences to executive function. So you are able then to have strong working memory. You're able to have sustained attention. You can listen well. The brain is built from the back to the front and from the inside out. We all come into the world with a brain stem unless we had a significantly premature birth. But that brain stem is the seat of everything we do automatically and autonomically. It's where you have digestion and respiration and everything, blinking and coughing and sneezing, everything you do without telling your body to do it. But the rest of the brain is waiting for one main ingredient to develop. What do you think it is? I'm not talking about avocados or blueberries. What would you guess? What is the one main ingredient that builds brains?
Oxygen.
I'm going to give you the first letter. E. X. Exercise helps. Experiences. So the brain is an experience-dependent organ. And we tell our middle schoolers, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, freshmen, all the way through high school really, that your brain will never ever have the plasticity and the malleability that it does right now. So whatever you put your brain in front of, that brain is going to wire up perfectly. You tell me you want to play professional soccer, you tell me you want to play, football. What do you do when you get home after school? What do you do in the mornings when you get up? We really do learn through patterned, repetitive experiences, and our kids love to know this because that brain is going through the second greatest time in development, starting in 4th or 5th grade, and that's why I entered 5th grade. So let's go ahead and do. I'll share with you what I do with students. This is called a brain interval, and it wakes us up. It actually literally activates the brainstem area, and you've got this. Our kids know this. In the brainstem, you have this area called the locus ceruleus, and it spritzes norepinephrine throughout your brain to alert us. I mean, the brain works. It's so complex. I'm making it so easy, so forgive me today. I'm talking in schematics, but literally, if you don't have some novelty in your day, if you're not anticipating or being curious about something, then our brains get lulled to sleep and we get bored. So you got to change it up. Change up your routine. Change the way you go through a morning. Change the way you end the day. Change up your rituals. Because your brain is constantly responding to the experiences that you put in front of it. So let's change it right now. Go ahead and make a peace sign and an okay sign. Go ahead and hold it up. Some of you look so hesitant. I promise it'll be okay. Nothing horrible is going to happen. Now, as fast as you can, switch and go back and forth. show the person next to you how well you're doing.
My brain's awake now.
So, and it's okay, don't be embarrassed. You should not be good at this. And
I won.
yeah, and you can flip someone off too, so be careful. So our kids today, I go into 3rd grade, and I introduced this to them 3 weeks ago. And literally, I'm sitting there, we're talking today about focused attention practices. This is a brain interval. So we're giving them these practices and strategies to get the brain ready. It's the same for us as adults. We need to prime the brain before you go in the morning, before you go to sleep at night. And so I'm sitting there talking with them, and these 3 little guys are just doing this the whole time. They got it. They have been practicing non-stop. I mean, they're doing it behind their back, they're closing their eyes, they love it. So that's actually, it's really discipline on the front end, because we're building engagement right when they walk in the door, right when they come in. I would have done so many fun routines as a mom with Andrew, Sarah, and Reagan. If I had known this, we would have had focused attention practices before we went to bed at night. We would have been tapping. Has anyone ever heard of tapping? So emotional freedom technique has growing research, but it is energy work. And we actually have a professor that was at Purdue University who is still doing research comparing cognitive behavioral therapy to EFT, emotional freedom technique. And now she's in upstate New York, but we're teaching the kids that you have meridian points on your skin that respond to limbic structures in the brain. And it's growing research. I'm not going to speak definitively because I don't know it like that, but we do see studies comparing cognitive behavioral therapy to EFT, reducing anxiety. And in our world right now, for adults and children, anxiety is our nation's new learning disability. We are seeing anxiety like we've never seen before. And so many of our children are carrying in what we call pain-based behaviors, adverse childhood experiences. And adverse childhood experiences change the way the brain feels, the way the brain thinks, it changes the brain's physiology, it changes the brain's hormonal and perceptual systems. Every system in the body can be reprogrammed with accumulating chronic adversity. So we know the achievement gaps that we're seeing from some of our kids that are consistent are adversity gaps. We know now that adverse childhood experiences, it was first conducted in the mid-90s. Now the research, after hundreds of studies, is showing a statistically significant correlation to mental, emotional, and physiological health outcomes. So the higher your adverse childhood experience score, those adversities you encountered in early life between birth and 18, the higher the dose-response relationship to diabetes, to heart disease, to autoimmune disorders, to addiction, to mental illness. It goes on, almost everything, because it's all about inflammation. So what we now know is that we can intervene and we can provide practices that can 6 hours a day for our little ones, as that brain and body is developing, can rewire and reprogram how that adversity and stress is affecting them. And it's true for us. You know, it's true. I mean, there's not a moment. You can ask my daughter Reagan, who's back here. I mean, it's all about the brain in our house, right? I mean, everything we look at, everything we see, I mean, we talk about it constantly. So, I would love your questions. Any questions you have? What time is it? Did I go over my time? 12:37. Yeah, so would you like, I love questions because that helps me, I tell like the big picture. Yes, thank you.
First of all, I love neuroscience stuff.
Good.
Game changer for me, so thank you. That's why I showed up.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. And hats off to you trying to cram that in this short of a time, because it took me months to learn. But I was curious with the focused attention practices, are there any other ones besides the peace So two-part question, are there any other things that you recommend, like, or something? I
Yeah.
couldn't understand if you were saying the tapping was
I
one
know,
of
I
them.
went through that like just the
Well, that's fine,
speed.
but
I'm
want
so
to know
sorry.
about those, and then what are some good times you think, different things that we're gonna do that are good to do that before? Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, it absolutely does. So
prep work.
so let me slow down a bit. Thank you so much for that question. See? That helps. That helps. So let me start by saying brain intervals, what we just did, this wakes the brain up. It wakes up the brainstem, it alerts the brainstem, it re-engages us. You know, it's like taking a bike ride when you're tired, you know, or stretching, moving. It's novelty. You know, so one of the things that, do you all have, so does anyone have a pen with them, or, so I can do it with my water bottle, but this is one of the things, like our favorite, thank you. So one of the things that we do, like this is silly, but this was the best brain interval of the week. The kids love this. So we just take a pen and we just drop it. So they start close, and then I'm probably cheating, and then they see how far, it's just, or a pen toss, you know, like trying to do, so that's a brain interval. Saying the alphabet with words instead of letters. We'll stop what we're doing, we'll say apple, baby, cat, dog, egg, fish, you know, ice, jump. We'll just, so it's really, and I write for a publication called Edutopia. So they have published many of the brain intervals, and I have so many on my website too. So you can go to my website, it's revelationsineducation.com, and Rex and Gabby can give you, you know, information too. So that's a brain interval. A focused attention practice slows us down, dampens down limbic structures, calms the nervous system, and helps us focus. So that's when we are intentional about using breath. We might use movement, that's tapping. So right now, if you go ahead and take your right hand and put it under your left arm, it's easier to show you and let you experience it, and take your left arm and put it on your right shoulder. And then what I want you to do right now, I like to close my eyes and just, as you take 3 of the deepest breaths, as you inhale, just give yourself kind of a squeeze and extend your exhale or your out breath a couple of seconds longer, and take that air all the way down to your belly. So you're blowing up your belly and then deflating. So just take 3 or 4 deep breaths right now. Take one more deep breath. So that is like before that, or at the end, we're starting to feel rough, just slowing our bodies down, tracing our hands, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. We open our inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. We do the rocket breath with little ones. You're gonna fire your rocket. So deep breath. Bigger breath. Rocket's almost ready to blast off. Big breath. And slow exhale and blast off. So we just, we're using rhythm. We're using, but always our breath. And do you guys all remember Pop Rocks? So that's a focused attention practice we use with taste. So we, pre-COVID, we would put Pop Rocks, and they would put them on their tongue, and they would focus on the sensation. And I'm telling you, there'd been an altercation in the hallway or on the bus or at breakfast, that was forgotten for a moment, and they were back in the class with me. Because when you can focus on a sensation, they also hold an ice cube in their mouth. This is a focused attention practice. And so you breathe, and we time, and we melt away one worry that we came in with. And when that ice cube is melted, our worry has melted. And And so, those are some of the, we're trying to make it visual, we're trying to make it active, but also knowing that quiet's okay. And I'm telling you, by the time you do this with enthusiasm with your own family or with each other, the kids ask for it if you forget it. They know what their bodies need. So thank you for asking that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm curious, like, how do you talk about this with maybe, like, a partner or a client, someone who maybe doesn't think the way that you do about neuroscience, but you need them to regulate their emotions? What's the best way to approach that?
Well, so she asked, what if, you are working with someone who doesn't really believe in this? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Well, let me say first of all, this is science. So there's nothing, you can have any opinion you want, but what I'm sharing with you today is science. And this is what we're sharing with our schools and districts. And when you understand the science of what's beneath behavior, when you understand the science and how our nervous system is affected, and also how our different areas of the brain regions are affected, we all hold a pharmacy in our bodies and brains. You can create cortisol and adrenaline by thoughts you think. You can literally dysregulate yourself. You could really throw yourself into quite a tailspin by your thoughts and perceptions and feelings, thinking about something traumatic that happened to you yesterday, last week, or last year. And our bodies and brains do not know the difference between the event or thinking about it. And so we can also create, through focused attention practices, walking, movement, rhythm, heat, pressure, touch, running your hands under warm water activates the parasympathetic nervous system and can produce serotonin and oxytocin. So we know that 90 to 95% of serotonin, which is our body's master neurohormone, is produced in our bellies. That's new research. We've always thought of serotonin being a brain neurotransmitter. But what we know now, and that's why I said, we not only digest food in our bellies, we digest relationships. So our associations with food, with how meal time, with snack time, and we're addressing that with students. So they can disagree, but we give, when I have colleagues that resist, we just share the science. And that resistance goes away pretty quickly. It's where we are now. The medical profession, so we work with a pediatrician, Dr. Jim Bean, who's in Lafayette, and also Dr. Scott Lepore, who's going to be speaking at Butler Saturday. The medical profession there's a 17-year gap between what physicians, how they practice, and the research. So you think about that in the medical world. We've got a pretty significant gap in the education world, and literally in most of our business, understandings. And really, there isn't a business that is not about the human brain. And I'll end with this. The brain is not only built through experiences, the brain is a social organ. It acts more like a muscle than it does an organ. And whatever you put in front of it, it gets a workout. So, and we tell the kids that. Whatever you are practicing, whatever you use with repetition gets stronger. The brain is social, it's historical, and now we can trace trauma intergenerationally, historically. So last year, if I had been speaking under the shelter, I would have said 4 generations. Now some of the research coming out of the University of Minnesota is seeing 14 generations, over 300 years of trauma being carried through families. So, and again, we know it can cross the placenta and get into the sperm cell, gets into the precursor egg cell. Cortisol and adrenaline cross the placenta. And so a baby's mother's brain and body state could be a child's first ACE. If the mother is dysregulated, that can affect the homeostasis of the developing fetus. So, but here, I'm gonna leave you with the best news. ACEs and adversity does not have the last word. Our brains are built to heal and repair and to have resiliency. And that's why I get so excited about this for communities. We're taking this work to law enforcement. We're taking it into the judicial system. If you know of any organizations that you would like to share this work with, we need to get it into the community. We need to get it into other persons, adults who sit beside children in our communities. I work with bus drivers. Bus drivers have this incredible opportunity to build relationships that teachers can't. Because bus drivers see and can have relationships with kids and see the context of where kids live that we can't see. So I was in Crown Point, Indiana 3 weeks ago, and they invited me to speak for 2 hours with food service providers in their school district. And that was really cool. So this is about every aspect of life. Every aspect. So thank you for having me today. Thanks, you guys. Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I was trying to not take up all the questions.
No, not at all.
Since my colleagues are being quiet. Quick question. So, to drive us on home, we're very busy. We got a lot. Half of us don't have kids. Some have them. Whatever. As far as we're concerned, long, busy days. What would be a practice so we don't look crazy in the car? But if we do, it's well worth it. You got to get yourself turned on in a second to go into a listing presentation.
Yep.
What that means is we're going into someone else's home. We don't know what we're going to walk into, and we want to be our best selves, but we've just given our all throughout the day. And so that's what I was kind of thinking. What is a practice or something that maybe we could do to just kind of give us that jolt?
Energize that nervous system. Well, everything I've mentioned today is as much for adults as it is for kids. So whether you take 3 deep breaths before you go in with a long, slow exhale, whether you tap a little bit, and I know I didn't go into that, but we have meridian points on the skin that respond. Taking some ice with you. So we have this 10th cranial nerve called the vagus nerve. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve literally is intimately connected to our emotional and physiological health, and it runs from the viscera up to the brainstem. So when we are activating that vagus nerve, and I'm getting right back to your question, when we're activating it, we're putting a brake on this nerve, and we're activating the parasympathetic response. Running your hands, washing your face with cold water can be very calming to your nervous system before you go in. Carrying some ice with you, just putting some ice on the back of your neck as you take 3 deep breaths. We know now that giving yourself a hand massage, literally starting at your wrist before you go into a meeting, when you're going through something tough, literally pushing and putting pressure on the joints and on your fingers. We're having the kids do it now with antibacterial soap because we're using it all day long, but they used to do it with just lotion. So giving yourself a hand massage is really a quick way to activate. Literally taking your shoes off for just a minute and wiggling your toes can activate that nervous system too and kind of energize the body. It increases circulation in the body too. So there's a lot, and I'll be happy to I can send to Gabby and Rex some more of the practices. Yeah, you could do that. Here's another one. You could go back and forth like this. So you start with a fist. Wait. So like this. And then you switch.
You guys are gonna see me in my car like Crystal has an appointment.
So
Thank you.
you're so welcome. Any other questions? Well, thanks you guys so much. I've loved just sharing with you. So thank you.
Thank you.